It started with a letter in my mailbox, thin, crisp, and printed with the HOA smug, self-important letterhead. I didn't even need to open it to know it was trouble. Around here, those envelopes never carried good news. I tore it open and read, "You are hereby fined $250 for excessive trash visible on your property. Failure to comply may result in additional penalties and legal action." No explanation, no warning, just a fine. I stood in my driveway, the morning sun baking the asphalt, and stared at the so-called trash they were talking about. 27 large black bags stacked neatly against my garage wall. Inside them were toys, hundreds of them. Dolls, trucks, puzzles, books, all donated by local families for the charity drive I have been running for the last 2 weeks. The drive was my pride. Every December, I worked with a small nonprofit to collect toys for orphans across the state. I had been doing it for years. It wasn't a flashy operation. No corporate sponsors, no TV commercials. Just me, my pickup truck, a folding table in the yard, and a lot of goodwill from neighbors. But this year, the HOA's queen bee, Karen, her real name was Marlene Henderson, but she embodied Karen in every possible way, had been circling me like a vulture. She'd been HOA president for all of 8 months and acted like she was chairwoman of the United Nations. I'd heard from a few people that she didn't like the optics of my yard being a drop-off point for toys. Apparently, neat rows of donation bags weren't aesthetic enough for her taste. What really boiled my blood wasn't just the fine. It was the fact that she didn't even ask. She didn't call, she didn't knock, she didn't even try to find out what those bags were. She just saw black plastic and decided I was lowering the property values. I took a deep breath and told myself not to get angry yet. I'd handled petty HOA nonsense before. I grabbed my phone and called the number on the letter. The HOA office picked up after 4 rings. "This is Brenda, HOA Administrative Assistant. How can I help you?" "Yeah, Brenda, this is Mark Russell from 144 Westover. I just got a fine for excessive trash. I think there's been a mistake." She put me on hold without a word. When she came back, her voice was colder. "Mr. Russell, the fine stands. You have multiple trash bags visible from the street. That violates Section 8.2 of the HOA bylaws." "They're not trash," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "They're toys for a charity drive. We've been doing this for years." "Trash bags are trash bags, Mr. Russell. You can't keep them outside." I could practically hear Karen feeding her the lines in the background. It took every ounce of restraint not to say what I really wanted to say. Instead, I hung up, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at that fine. That's when I made my decision. If Karen wanted to play this game, I'd play it better. And I wouldn't just win, I'd make sure everyone saw her lose. First step, I called the local news station. A reporter named Alex, who had covered our toy drive the previous year, picked up. "Mark, how's the drive going?" "Going great, but you might want to bring a camera. The HOA just fined me for it." Silence. Then, "You're kidding." "Nope. Fined me for excessive trash. I think it'd be a pretty good human interest piece, don't you?" Alex didn't even hesitate. "We'll be there tomorrow morning." By the time the sun came up the next day, I'd already moved all the bags to the front lawn, right along the sidewalk where everyone could see. I borrowed a couple of folding tables from the church and set up big cardboard signs. "These are not trash. They're toys for orphans."
When the news van rolled in, neighbors started gathering. Some brought coffee, others brought more toys. A few had that look, the one that said they were here because they'd heard the HOA was trying to shut me down, and they were itching for a fight. Alex interviewed me right there on the lawn. I told the whole story, how the drive worked, how generous the community had been, and how the HOA had slapped me with a fine without a single question. I didn't have to mention Karen by name. Everyone already knew who she was. Right in the middle of the interview, Karen herself showed up. She marched up the sidewalk in her pastel sweater set, clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon. The crowd parted for her, though not out of respect. "Mark," she said, her voice pitched high for the cameras, "we could have handled this privately." We could have, I said, smiling for the reporter. But you sent me a fine instead. Her eyes flicked to the camera. The HOA has rules about maintaining property appearance, trash bags. They're toys, Karen. I stepped aside so the reporter could pan over the tables, the signs, and the clear plastic bags now filled with dolls and teddy bears. Do these look like garbage to you? She tried to recover, muttering something about proper storage methods and precedent, but the damage was done. The reporter kept the camera on her long enough for every awkward stammer to be immortalized. When the segment aired that night, the headline read, HOA fines resident for charity drive, toys delivered to hundreds of orphans. The footage of Karen fumbling for words went viral in our little town within hours. People were tagging her on Facebook, posting screenshots, making memes. My favorite was one with her photo and the caption, "Think of the property values." But the real satisfaction didn't come until the following weekend when the toy delivery took place, and Karen was forced to watch it all. The morning of the delivery felt different, like the air itself was humming with anticipation. The night before, we'd sorted every single toy, rebagged them in transparent wrapping, and labeled each by age group. The local church offered their hall for final staging, but I decided we'd load the trucks right from my driveway. Because this wasn't just a delivery, it was a statement. I woke up to the rumble of engines. Volunteers were already showing up. Neighbors, friends, even people I'd never met but who'd seen the news segment and wanted to help. Pickup trucks lined both sides of the street. A couple of guys from the fire station had brought their ladder truck just for the spectacle. And, just as I hoped, Karen was there. She stood across the street, arms folded, pretending to be out for a morning walk with her yappy little dog. The dog barked at everything, but Karen's glare was squarely fixed on me. The first TV crew arrived before 8 a.m. Alex had clearly spread the word because this time it wasn't just his station. 2 other local outlets rolled in, cameras ready. They were filming volunteers hauling bag after bag into the bed of my truck. The street buzzed with laughter and conversation, and at one point, a group of teenagers formed a chain passing toys from the garage all the way down the sidewalk. I could see Karen's jaw tighten. This was no longer a trash problem. This was a parade. One of the reporters pulled me aside for a quick interview. "Mark, last time we saw you, you were dealing with a fine from the HOA. Has anything changed since then?" I grinned. Only that our toy drive just broke a record. Over 1,200 toys collected this year, and every single one will be in the hands of a child by tonight.
When I said that, the crowd erupted in applause. That's when I decided to twist the knife. I had arranged for one of the orphanage vans to come early, not to load toys, but to bring some of the kids right here. I wanted Karen to see their faces. The van pulled up, and out they came. 15 kids, bundled in mismatched coats and scarves, their eyes wide as they saw the mountain of toys. They didn't wait for permission. They ran straight to the tables, touching everything, pointing and giggling. A little girl in a pink hat hugged a teddy bear almost as big as she was. The cameras caught every second. I knelt down and asked her, "Do you like him?" She nodded shyly. "He's mine?" I smiled. "He's yours." That was the moment Karen broke. She stormed across the street, her heels clicking like gunshots. "This is not appropriate," she barked. "You can't hold public events without HOA approval. You're violating multiple bylaws." But before she could finish, one of the reporters turned the camera on her. "Ma'am, are you the HOA president?" "Yes, and are you the one who issued the fine for these donations?" Her face went pale. She stammered something about rules and precedent, but it was no use. The crowd was watching, the kids were watching, and the cameras were rolling. And then, the coup de grace. Mrs. Alvarez, a soft-spoken grandmother from down the block, stepped forward. She held up her phone and played the voicemail Karen had left her last week, complaining about all the garbage bags at Mark's house. The message was loud enough for everyone to hear. The murmurs turned into outright boos. Someone shouted, "They're toys, Karen!" and the phrase caught on. Within seconds, a dozen voices were chanting it. The kids, not understanding the politics but sensing the fun, joined in. Karen turned bright red, spun on her heel and fled. Her little dog barked frantically as she yanked it down the street. The rest of the day was nothing short of magic. We loaded up the trucks, kids helped stack boxes, volunteers posed for photos, and the fire station guys escorted us to the orphanage with lights flashing, not as an emergency, but as a celebration. When we arrived, the staff lined up to greet us. They hugged volunteers, shook hands, and cried openly as we unloaded. The kids swarmed the tables, each picking something they loved. Dolls found arms to live in. Toy cars raced across the floor. Puzzles were torn open with eager hands. One little boy, a wiry kid with serious eyes, approached me. He held a model airplane still in its box. "This is the first new toy I've ever had," he said softly. That hit me harder than anything Karen had done. We stayed for hours, laughing, eating the cookies the staff had baked, taking photos with the kids. The news crews filmed it all. When the story aired that night, it wasn't just about toys anymore. It was about community, compassion, and the way one petty act of control had backfired spectacularly. And the best part? The HOA board received so many complaints about Karen that she was forced to resign within 2 weeks. Word spread that she'd moved to a different neighborhood, one without any charity drives to ruin the aesthetics. Me? I kept the tradition going. Every December, we piled the toys high in my driveway, right where everyone could see. No one ever called them trash again. But every time I saw a black trash bag now, I couldn't help smiling, because I knew that somewhere out there, Karen still hated the sight of them. And that was a gift I didn't even have to wrap.